Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to do another video in my series where we are learning tips and tricks and hacks on how to improve our coloring skills. I believe this is the 11th video in the series, and today for this video we are going to actually learn a hack on how to create shadows using only contrasting colors. So we are going to change the value of the primary color we are trying to create just by using colors that are completely contrasting to that color. If you're interested in learning how to do this, do stick around for this video. If you are new here, please do subscribe to my channel and turn your bell notifications on. If you check the description box below, I always have everything linked down there that you've seen in the video, as well as a link to my Facebook group if you would like to join us over there, as well as a link to my email list, and also for my Patreon if you would like to support me there. Let's go ahead and get into this video. I have my color wheel here so that I could show you exactly how I'm doing this. I'm going to explain to you exactly what complementary colors are. They are colors that are contrasting from one another, and they are on the complete opposite ends of the color wheel. So for example, here we have green, and if we go exactly to the other side of the color wheel from green, we end up on red. So I am going to show you how to create shadows and change the value of the color using just those two colors. If green is the main color we are trying to create, I'm going to show you how to use red to create the shadow and actually change the value differences in the green color. So I created this sheet here like I always do for my videos when I'm showing you color combinations or just something that you can do with colored pencils. I am using Prismacolors for this video, and I already have all my colors set aside. The Prismacolors are a little bit more difficult to kind of pick true colors from because, you know, they all have the fancy names on them, and really the only one I was able to find that had the actual color name that is just straight up the color name that I needed was orange. So this is just the straight up orange from the Prismacolor set. I do have a true blue. I don't know how true that really is. I did swatch it out and it does look like a true blue. I swatched these colors out before I sat down to make the video to save a little bit of time. So you can see that the blue, if you're looking at the lead of this one, you can see that it pretty much matches up to the blue on my color wheel, and that is exactly what I was trying to do. We are going to start here with this first one, and we are going to work with, let's see here, so let's go ahead and look at our red, and like we talked about earlier, we've got red, and then the complementary color to red is going to be green because they are straight across from one another. So we are going to start with red and green. For this first box, I want red to be my main color that I'm going to change the value of. And so I'm going to use the green to be able to do that, and I'm going to show you exactly how. To create red, I'm going to take my green, and I don't know how many of you saw my last video where I showed you some hacks and such for heavy-handed colorists. If you watch the way I'm holding the pencil, I'm holding my hand further back because when I lay down the green, I want the green to be darker, and then as I come down, I am going to lighten up the pressure on the pencil so that I am not laying down as much pigment. Now, I am working on Spring Hill paper. Spring Hill paper is my absolute favorite paper to work on because it does have quite a bit of tooth, so I will be able to get down quite a few layers doing this. So what we're going to do first is we are just going to lay down our green. Now remember, as we do this, this is all going to turn to red once we lay our red down on top. So as I come down, I'm actually pulling the pressure off of the pencil, and I'm lightening up what I'm doing until I really come down here into what would look like white. And then I'm just going to stop. So I've got more color up here. So now I'm going to come back with my Scarlet Lake, which seems to be a pretty true red. Like I said earlier, I did match this one up to the color wheel, and so it looks like a pretty true red. So I'm going to come back the other direction, and I am actually applying quite a bit of pressure, and I am just going to come down all the way to the bottom as I lighten up the pressure even more. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to do that again. And you can see as it's going over the green, and the areas where the green was darker, the color is darker. And as I come down all the way to the bottom and I lighten up on my pencil, it actually just changed the value of the color all the way down. Now, like I said earlier, this paper does have quite a bit of tooth. So I'm just going to come back here and try to fill some of the white of the paper. Maybe go back the other direction. Do you see how it just completely changed the value of the color? And this red up here just looks like it is very, very shadowed. And that is how you would create a much more realistic shadow. You can bring this to your coloring pages and try this hack on your coloring pages. There is another hack that I want to show you because I'm not done with this one, but I wanted to make sure that I showed you this on camera for those of you that don't know. But I have two very small little white Prismacolors here, and a lot of you, I've seen you in my Facebook group, and you will come in the Facebook group and post a picture of your poor little nubs of your pencils. And so I don't know how many of you know that you could actually take the two pencils and you can glue them together and make a bigger pencil. So this way you don't waste your white Prismacolors, because you know how important white Prismacolors are. And I don't know, they are just, it's my most used pencil, and I have so many little tiny nubs like this. So this is just really, really important. So I've got some super glue here, and I'm going to show you how we are going to do this. And hopefully I don't stick my fingers together on camera and never be able to color again. Would that be so horrible? Okay, so I'm just going to push the sides, put a tad bit there must not be much left in here because not much is coming out. I have quite a bit, or a good amount, of super glue on there, and so I am going to come over here with the other one, and I am just going to stick it on top. I don't know how long this is going to take to dry, but let me hold this a little closer to the camera. You want to make sure that it is exactly lined up. The first time I did it, I don't think I lined it up enough. And I really don't want super glue on my hands because that would just not be good. But this may take a little bit of time to dry, so I'm gonna set it aside, but I really just wanted to show y'all what you can do to save your white Prismacolor. So I'm gonna let this one dry, and I'm going to go find me another white Prismacolor. Thank goodness for a replacement set, because I have a brand new white Prismacolor until this one here is able to dry. And then once it dries, I will just sharpen it and we will be back on our way to using the rest of this up. So that is a really cool hack for those of you that did not know about that. I'm going to come in here with my white, and I am just going to come in and burnish all of this out and get rid of most of the white of the paper. But do you see how neat that is? And it really just, up here where we've got most of our shadow, it looks just like it's red. Like the green is hidden. You really cannot even see it. And if you wanted to be able to come back and add more color, you can always come back after you have burnished it out and just add more color and go over it again in the areas where you want that shadow to be much more pronounced. And I did all of this with just those two colors. So that is our first one. And let's go ahead and try to do the same thing now using the green and the red, but making our green the primary color that we change the values of. So I would come in here with my red first, and I would just lay some of this down, and I want to go back, or I want to go down a little bit further this time before I start coming up on the pressure of the pencil. And you would just continue to come down as you lighten up your pressure. And then at the bottom here, I'm just hardly going to do anything and just leave that area white, so that way that will be my lightest green area. So now I'm going to come back with my green, and like I did earlier, I am going to apply more pressure, and I'm going to come back and go the other direction. So this helps to fill in some of the white of the paper. And you could see as I go down and I've got less white, or less red, I'm sorry, it automatically changes the value of the color. And as I come down, I'm just coming up off of my pencil. And then I'm going to come back here with my white Prismacolor, and I am just going to burnish all of this out. And then like I did earlier, if I wanted to, I can just come back and create more of a shadow. I could even do this where I want more shadow to be able to create more depth. So if I wanted to come back and line all of this to make it more three-dimensional, I could surely do that. And then lighten up the pressure of my pencil as I come down. And just kind of blend this in just a little bit more. And then come back with my white. But if I really wanted this to be a lesson on creating dimension, then I would probably come back and I would just fill all this in and do that quite a few more times, just to make this outer edge quite a bit darker, and that would create the look of it is just kind of coming up off the page and making it look much more dimensional, just like I just did. So there are so many very cool things that you could do with colored pencils, and there's so many things that a lot of us really just don't know, especially if we're beginners. But All of these tips and tricks, they all make such a huge difference. But you could see how the value of the colors just completely changed. And I could come back over here and I could add more white down here at the bottom if I wanted to and kind of lighten that up. And I've got my light, my medium, and my dark shadowed area. We are going to create another one, and we are going to use two other contrasting colors. So let's go ahead and take a look at our color wheel. And remember, when we're using contrasting or complementary colors is what they call them on the color wheel, which is two colors that are just straight across from one another. And so what they do is they just create that contrast, but you could also use them for this cool little hack that I'm showing you. So if we come in here and we wanted to do it with, let's try blue next. So let's go ahead and look at our blue. This is our blue up here, and if I come straight across the color wheel, I am at orange. So I am going to get my blue and my orange that I have already picked out. Like I said earlier, I already matched these colors up to see which one was more of a true blues and which one was more of a true orange. With the Prismacolors, it was very easy to choose the orange because they do actually have an orange in the set, but a lot of them have very, kind of different fancy names. And so it's kind of hard to determine which is which and what is actually a true color unless you match it up to your color wheel. So I've got my true blue here. Let's go ahead and make the primary color of this one, where we change the value scale, the orange. So I'm going to start out with my blue, and I'm just going to lay a little bit of the blue at the top. And again, as I come down, I am just going to continue to lighten up the pressure. If you didn't see my previous video where I showed you how not to be heavy-handed, I'm going to go ahead and link that in the upper right-hand corner. That video is a great video to watch if you find yourself being a little more heavy-handed than you want to. So I've got some color down here, and I've got darker, and then I lift it up just a little bit as I come down in here to barely putting any on the paper. So we are going to come in here with our orange, and just like I did previously, we are going to come over here with hard pressure. And see, I can still get pretty hard pressure with my hand right about here on the pencil, and I'm still keeping my pencil sideways. But I want to make sure that I am covering all of the blue so that our blue doesn't show through, and then I'm kind of coming down to the bottom where I lift up the pencil a little bit off the paper and alleviate the pressure with my hand so that I hardly have any color down here, because when I come down here and I burnish it in with my white, it's going to make a beautiful, really pale orange color. Now, I'm just trying to make sure that I do fill in the white of the paper, and I come down here. Oh, I'm going out of the lines, look at this. So I'm just making sure that I come down here and I fill most of this white of the paper so that we could see the difference in the value of these colors. Okay, so let's go ahead and come back with our white, and I'm going to go in a circular motion, and I'm going to pull these colors together and just kind of burnish them out and get rid of all of the white in the paper again. So there's our orange and our blue. Now I'm noticing with this one, and remember, I am experimenting with this idea right along with y'all. So I didn't necessarily try all of these out off camera, but I want you to remember that sometimes you may get a little bit of a muddy looking look. And so up here where I'm noticing that it looks a little bit muddy, you can either go back and experiment with different colors, or you can go back again and we can always come back here and add more orange because we really want to get rid of whatever we're seeing of that blue. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to add a little bit more orange just to try to get rid of that. And then down here where I want the color to stay a little bit lighter all the way into my lightest value, I'm going to come back over with the white. So where I initially did this, if you do this and this happens to you where it looks a little bit muddy from the combination of the colors, you want to, when you apply your blue, to just apply a lighter amount of blue, or maybe even change the blue color that you're using to a different blue that is going to go down lighter. But after playing with it a little bit, I'm happier with it, and I can still come back over here and just add more of the orange, and that is definitely taking a lot of it away. So you do have to experiment with this, and before bringing it to your coloring book, you may want to try it off to the side on some paper and make sure that the colors you're choosing, the shade of orange that you're choosing with the shade of blue that you're choosing, are going to be colors that are going to mix well together, because you may have to make a few adjustments. If you want to know that you're using a very true blue and a very true orange when you're trying to do this, then go ahead and find a more budget set that is going to have their colors labeled with names that are orange, blue, red, green, and you've got those primary colors and you know exactly what they are, like maybe a small set of Crayolas or something like that. Because I really wanted to use my Prismacolors just because that is what I am using for this series. And so I really didn't want to bring out something like Crayolas. And I really wanted to experiment with this with my Prismacolors, because you all know these are my favorite pencils, and I will probably do a little bit more experimenting off camera to see which colors blend the best together. So let's go ahead and do this one backwards now and see what kind of results we get. So now we're going to make our main color, or the primary color, blue. And so we are going to come in here with our orange and lay a little bit of this down. And I think this one is going to probably work a little bit better. And I'm not going to add that much of the orange because, again, I want to make sure I cover the whole thing with my blue and cover up the orange. That's the trick here. You need to make sure you're actually covering up the other color. So let's go ahead and come back with our blue. And again, this is what Prismacolor calls their true blue, and it matched up very well when I matched it to my color wheel. So I'm using a heavier pressure. And where there is less orange underneath, it is automatically going to lighten up the color. that is actually the actual hack part of this. Where you can see where I could just keep laying it down, but because it has a lighter shade of orange underneath, it's actually changing the value of the color that your eyes see, which is really, really cool. So we have, let me go ahead and color a little bit more to get rid of some more of this white of the paper. So let's now come back and burnish this out with our white Prismacolor. This is a really great idea if you're doing a coloring page and you want to work with a monochromatic color scheme and use all the same color. Let's come back to our color wheel, and we are going to do one of the more difficult ones. So let's look again at our complementary colors, and I am looking at yellow, and we all know yellow is a very light color. And the complementary color, if we go right across the color wheel from yellow over here, we are going to end up at violet, and violet is a pretty dark color. So that's really not going to work out all of that well when I'm trying to create yellow as my primary color, but I want to enhance it by adding shadows. I am not necessarily sure that this color is going to be too dark. I think that it is going to make it look more muddy. So I'm going to move down a little bit further over here, which if we go a couple colors this way or a couple colors this way, we are still in the complementary colors for the color that is directly across the way. So I am going to look at more of a red violet when I do this combination. And so I'm also going to intensify the yellow by making it a yellow that is a tad bit darker and has a little bit of orange in it. So with this one, I'm cheating just a little bit because I want it to look really, really good. So I am going with the orange yellow, and then I'm coming almost directly across to my red violet. So I'm kind of going from yellow to the violet, which would be completely complementary, but I am skipping over one here and skipping over one here just to make these colors come together a little bit better. So I think that it's going to work out really well. But I've got mulberry, which is my violet color or my violet red that I'm using. And then I have this yellow ochre, which is a bit of a deeper yellow. So I'm going to come in here with my mulberry, and we are going to test this out and see if this combination of contrasting colors is going to work out well for us. And I'm going very, very light with this here at the top. And I'm only adding just a very little bit. And that's all I'm doing for this one. Now I'm going to come back with my yellow ochre, and I am going to use hard pressure and then lighten it up as I come down. And see, it's actually working. Let me add another layer to get that really nice and dark. And then I just want to make sure that I'm covering all of that mulberry. And now that I'm looking at this, I probably could have added a little bit more. It really gave that a really nice effect. Let's now come back with the white Prismacolor, and we are just going to burnish these colors out. And this one, this might be my favorite one. This one worked really, really well. And as I come down, it's just going to lighten up even more. That one worked really, really well. And like I said earlier, if you want to come down with your darkest color, and add more dimension to make your 2D object look more 3D, you can surely do that. Let's go ahead and do this the opposite now. So I have the yellow ochre, and I'm going to come in here and lay a bit of this down. And with this one, I'm not too worried about how much I lay down here at the top, because I really think this mulberry is going to cover it nicely. So let's go ahead and come in now with our mulberry. And like I did the others, we are going to come the other direction. Wow, this combination really works well together. I really like this one. So let's come all the way down, and as we come down, just like with the others, we are going to alleviate the pressure of the pencil. And I could still see the yellow a little bit, so you want to make sure all that yellow is covered up. And make sure you've got a lot of that white filled in where you want the most of the shadow when you're doing this in your coloring books. So make sure that you get all the other color covered up. Now let's come back. Let me take the yellow off of the tip of my Prismacolor so I don't mix yellow in there, but let's come back and go ahead and go over this with our white Prismacolor and burnish all these colors together. Y'all have to let me know what you think in the comments, but I think that I like this set of complementary colors the best. And you can experiment with this using your color wheel on your coloring pages, and then just practice off to the side. But look how well this one worked, and look how well this one worked. And instead of using the yellow, I just kind of went over a little bit on the color wheel, and it worked out really, really well. Really well. I love that one. And look at the difference in the value of the color. It's really, really dark up here. You can't even ever tell there was any yellow behind it. And if you look at this one, you can't ever even tell that there was any mulberry behind this. And I probably could have laid down quite a bit more mulberry, and it probably would have looked even better. And see, now I know that for the future, now that I have experimented with it here. And this one here, after looking at it, where I did the true blue and the orange, I would probably skip around a little bit on the color wheel and change those colors up a little bit too, just like I knew to do ahead of time for the yellow and the purple, which ended up being a more golden yellow and a mulberry type color. Let's go ahead and try this with one more before we end this video, because there's one more color that I really want to experiment with that I think is going to really put this idea to the test. If I look at this blue-green and I come directly across my color wheel, I have red-orange or orange-red. So these are completely complementary to one another. And so what I did is I tried to match up some colors. So for my blue-green, I pulled the light aqua. And I tested this off to the side just a little bit, and the closer I got to the darker blue-green, it seemed to look a little bit muddy. So the one that I'm going to try to use is the light aqua, and we're going to test this out together. And for the orange-red, the closest I could find was this poppy red. And this poppy red, it's red, but it does have quite a bit of orange in it, and it's a really pretty color. So we are going to try this last one with these two colors and see what we can come up with. Let's go ahead and see how much we can hide the light aqua with our poppy red. So I'm going to go ahead and come in here and use the most pressure here at the top. It's still not very heavy. And I'm going to lay down this light aqua. And just like with the others, I'm going to come down here all the way to the bottom, alleviating the pressure that I'm putting on the pencil. And then I'm going to leave a little bit of white down here in the bottom of my square. Okay, so let's see what happens when we come back with this poppy red and go the opposite direction and cover this color. Let's see if I chose the right colors to do this with. I think I may have chosen the right colors. And I'm going to come all the way down, and I'm using the same pressure until I get all the way to the bottom. I'm kind of pulling up on the pressure. And I'm going to come back here and I'm going to put another layer. And you could see that it automatically changes the value of the color as you come down and lay this color or the poppy red over the top of the light aqua. Where you have the lesser of the light aqua, it automatically is going to change that color, even if you're using the same amount of pressure on your pencil, because you've got less of that contrasting color behind it. Let's go ahead and come back with our white, and we are going to go in a circular motion and blend these colors together. And I think this one worked really well. And this is why it's so much fun to experiment with your colored pencils. And if I wanted to, I can come back with my poppy red and add more shadows up here on the top. And if any of you apply these ideas that you're learning in these videos to your coloring page, please post what you've done in my Facebook group and let me know that you used my video tutorials and you tried to do this yourself. So this one turned out really, really nice. That looks really, really good. So let's go ahead and do the opposite now. So for the opposite, our primary color is going to be this light aqua. Hopefully this is going to be really pretty, but I don't know how much the light aqua is going to cover the poppy red. So when I use the poppy red, something tells me that I need to make the decision to just go a little bit lighter with this. So when I'm using the poppy red, I'm just going to come in here and not go as dark because my light aqua and I'm going to do like I did with the mulberry one, and I'm just going to do it towards the top. And then I'm going to leave the second half alone with that color. So now I'm going to come back and I'm going to go over this. And now we are going to use our white Prismacolor and just blend all this out. And I think it worked well. Y'all have to let me know what you think in the comments. I would love for y'all to experiment with some different colors using the color wheel and let me know what your findings are and share it in the Facebook group. And I'm just going to come back here and lay a little bit more of this light aqua just to intensify the shadow. Y'all know I always want to see everything having some kind of depth. So even though I said I wasn't, I'm coming back and just trying to make this look like it's got a little bit of depth and dimension. But I did do a video where I showed you all about shadows and depth and dimension, and used spears to show you how to actually turn objects from two-dimensional to three-dimensional. I explained cast shadows and highlights and all of that, and I will make sure that that is linked in the upper right hand corner because that was a really great video. I hope y'all enjoyed this tutorial, and I just want to show you my white Prismacolor. It is now completely stuck together, and I want to show you. I've got my Dull 133. Y'all know this is my favorite pencil sharpener. But now I should be able to stick it in the sharpener and get a nice sharp lead again. And there we go. How is that for a pretty cool hack? There are so many of them. I could probably keep making these videos forever. I find things, like I research things, and I don't know, I'm always coming up with some kind of idea, and I have a notepad of things that I want to share with you all in the future. But there are so many different things you can do with your colored pencils, and I really love making these videos. So I hope you all really enjoyed this one. Everything that you've seen me use in the video, I will link down in the description box below. This is a fantastic color wheel. If you're looking for a color wheel, every colorist should have a color wheel. And this one is fabulous because it explains what complementary colors are, split complementary colors, a triad of colors, monochromatic. It explains to you what analogous colors are and analogous complementary colors. And it's a really great color wheel to use just because it explains everything right on the color wheel. It's fantastic for beginners. If you would like to grab a color wheel just like this one, I will have the link down in the description box below. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. Make sure you are subscribed because there is much more to come in this series and the other series that I'm currently doing on my channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Happy coloring. Bye.